Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more captivating stories like this. Now, let's dive into today's intriguing tale. Our story begins. In the year 2025, Earth was invaded by extraterrestrial life forms, leading to a tense situation where people had to retreat. However, in 2038, a breakthrough in genetic engineering allowed humanity to turn the tide of the war by utilizing genetically modified soldiers. These soldiers successfully held back the enemy's onslaught. By the year 2050, a unified genetic test was officially launched. Individuals who reached the age of majority and achieved a sufficient number of points in the test were eligible to receive a special injection and gain superpowers. In this world, a high school student named Dins was experiencing a crucial moment in human history. Walking down the street, he encountered holograms of great gene soldiers urging people to fight the alien invaders. Becoming a gene soldier or scientist was the only path to participate in the genetic test. Missing this opportunity meant being cast to the lowest stratum of society, where one would become insignificant. From early childhood, individuals underwent countless lessons and exams with the ultimate goal of passing the genetic test. To excel in the test, people underwent intense physical training day in and day out. After years of hard work, the outcome of Dins's efforts would be decided that day. Just before the test, Dins received a call from his worried mother. She wanted to ensure he understood the risks involved, as the drug carried a 1% mortality rate. Dins reassured his mother, explaining that he had already passed all the pre-exams and felt compelled to see it through. Although his mother remained concerned, she wished him the best and hoped for his safe return. Inside the testing facility, students gathered, discussing the potential abilities they could acquire if they passed the test. Dins noticed the determination in everyone around him. He proceeded towards one of the guarded entrances, directed to room 25 for the gene injection. Before entering, his fingerprints and iris were scanned, confirming his identity. Walking along the bright corridor, Dins contemplated the unknown gene he would receive. He pondered about which type of gene he would activate, whether it would be the one that enhanced his physical strength, a limited type, or a special ability, a superpower type. He silently hoped that he wouldn't awaken any peculiar or bizarre abilities that could potentially have useless or harmful side effects. During his exploration, he came across a group of girls working at the facility. Dins pondered the idea of awakening something more typical, like X-ray vision. His imagination painted a picture of him encountering a group of beautiful girls and using his ability to see through their clothes. In the corridor, he also noticed a group of guys expressing their fears about the 1% rejection rate of the gene injection. One of them had seen photos of those who were rejected, and their appearances were described as terrifying. However, an optimist among them highlighted the 99% chance of successful awakening, believing that they would live happily ever after from that moment onward. The alarmist continues to assert that there is a significant distinction between a 1% and 0 probability. An optimist is summoned through the loudspeaker to undergo an injection. The young man is confident that he will acquire remarkable abilities as a result. Observing this, Dins perceives that everyone around him seems to be hopeful about successfully awakening their genes, including himself. With determination, he finally approaches Office 25, mustering his strength to enter. However, just as he is about to knock on the door, a powerful explosion erupts beside him. It becomes apparent that the optimist, due to the explosion, is now engulfed in flames in the corridor. His friends hastily flee the scene, while the staff attempt to extinguish the fire and administer another medication to save the young man. The employee manages to douse the burning young man with an ample supply of solution from a fire extinguisher, silencing his agonizing screams. Despite their efforts, they are unable to save him in time, as his body sustains severe damage. This incident marks the 5th student today whose genome was destroyed due to an abnormal reaction to the injection. Tragically, this young man happened to possess an exceptional fire gene type. Witnessing such a gruesome scene, his friends turn pale and promptly decide to evacuate the premises. Dins, who only moments ago was prepared to boldly enter Office 25, now experiences a surge of intense anxiety. He fully comprehends that his life is at stake. The protagonist contemplates whether he should proceed into the office and if he will survive the endeavor. However, in comparison to death, his greatest fear is becoming a mere casualty of the genetic era. To him, it seems preferable to explore beyond Earth rather than lead a mundane existence. With resoluteness, Dins firmly opens the door and provides his status, first name, last name, and personal number. A female voice responds, requesting him to enter while simultaneously inputting information into the virtual system. Noticing an attractive employee, Dins is momentarily captivated, causing him to catch his breath. At that moment, she asks him to answer a few questions before the procedure. The girl reminds him of the potential side effects of the injection, including the possibility of death. The young man assures her that he is aware of these risks. She proceeds to ask if he fully comprehends all the dangers and if he agrees to assume responsibility. Dins affirms his understanding and willingness to take responsibility. With that, this stage is completed, and the employee retrieves the syringe. As she prepares to administer the injection, she poses one final question, inquiring whether Dins is certain about receiving the injection and thereby awakening his hidden genes. Dins takes a few seconds to reflect, recalling the fate of the optimistic individual who believed it would all work out but ultimately perished in flames. Nevertheless, despite the risks, he remains resolute and confidently proclaims his unwavering decision. Satisfied with his response, the employee calls out his name, status, and personal number, instructing him to remove his pants. Upon hearing her request regarding his pants, the hero is slightly taken aback. It is not an everyday occurrence for a girl to ask him to remove his pants for a needle injection. The employee proceeds to explain that the injection is most effective when administered into the femoral artery, as it triggers the activation of the gene. After receiving the explanation, the young man doesn't feel any better. However, he obediently begins to remove his pants, requesting the employee to be more gentle. Unfortunately, it becomes evident that the employee lacks a delicate touch, as his screams echo throughout the entire facility. The girl concludes that the drug has been successfully administered and has spread throughout his body. The young man's vital signs remain stable, and his brain waves frequency is normal, along with the rest of his body. Curious about the test subject's condition, the employee inquires about how Dins feels. He responds that he feels absolutely nothing, except for a throbbing pain in his buttocks from the injection. 10 minutes later, she rechecks his vitals and asks once again about his condition, but he still doesn't feel anything. This worries him because any changes would indicate the effectiveness of the injection. He was worried that the awakened process had failed. Another 30 minutes pass, and the employee notes that no changes have been detected during the observation of student Dins. The girl rises from her chair, turning to the young man, and expresses that this is unusual and the first time she has encountered such a situation. Approaching him, she asks him to stand up for a moment. The thought crosses Dins's mind that this might be the end, and he will never achieve anything. However, he realizes that he can no longer get up. Dins suddenly feels a jolt and an intensifying pressure in his head, causing him to abruptly fall off the couch and unleash agonizing screams. The employee is bewildered by what is happening, can no longer hear the girl's questions and is solely concerned about Dins's head, which feels like it's on the verge of exploding. She fails to notice that the drug may have rejected him and proceeds to check his vital signs on the alarming screen. His heart rate reaches 180, his temperature rises to 50 degrees, and all his vital signs deteriorate rapidly. Versus senses that he is descending into an abyss, losing all sensation in his body. The hero feels the approach of death, and everything becomes weightless. Dins wonders if he is dead. Opening his eyes, the hero finds himself facing a massive astral body that bears a striking resemblance to himself. As he gazes at this body, he is filled with wonder, contemplating where he is and who is in front of him. Simultaneously, he starts to faintly hear a countdown. The countdown persists, culminating in a powerful discharge so intense that it brings Dins back to reality. Sitting up on the couch, he hears the employee reporting that after the initial discharge, the student regained consciousness, having recovered from the pain. Eager to understand what happened to him, Dins seeks answers. The girl explains that 14 hidden genes have awakened within his body. While he is pleased with this news because having 14 hidden genes is quite impressive, he is dismayed by the employee's subsequent revelation that all these genes belong to the mysterious types or wisdom type. She provides him with a form to fill out, which will be entered into the database. Dins still finds it difficult to believe that all his genes are of the mysterious types or wisdom type. He has heard that they typically work in public relations departments, and most positions will be clerical in nature. There is a possibility that he may have to work as an office clerk for the rest of his life, which disappoints him. The employee, Having finished the report, asks if he has any further questions and informs him that he can read it. Dins, on the verge of tears, is eager to learn more about his newfound powers. The girl explains that having awakened hidden genes does not guarantee the acquisition of abilities. Even if he does acquire them, they are unlikely to manifest immediately, which is why they are classified as hidden. Dins comprehends the information she provides, and in addition to that, the employee offers him her business card. If he wants to apply to their university or learn more about the hidden type, he can contact her using the business card. Dins discovers that the employee's name is Hannah, and she is a professor at the Institute for the Study of Hidden Types. He is surprised to learn that someone of such a young age can already be a professor. As he rises from the bed, Dins bids farewell to the employee and reaches for the door, but Hannah stops him, cautioning him not to fall into the clutches of an organization called Dawn Redemption. To Dins's surprise, he has heard of this organization before. Dawn Redemption is a group of individuals who have betrayed humanity and conspired with alien invaders, causing significant losses for humanity over the past 100 years. They are relentless, and their primary focus is kidnapping gifted individuals for their experiments. Hannah adds that 5 students who awakened 10 hidden genes have already gone missing. Dins expresses his gratitude for the warnings, but inside, he begins to feel fear. With his 14 hidden genes, he realizes he could become a target. Emerging into the central hall, Dins's thoughts are consumed by the possibilities of his newfound abilities. He contemplates the usefulness of acquiring combat skills. Dins recalls that when he lost consciousness, he saw 14 points of light. He wonders about the connection between his genes and the astral body with the points. His thoughts are interrupted by his head aches, the side effects of the medicines, drawing his attention to his classmates. Joyful Stan and the visibly unwell Christian approach him, asking about the number of awakened genes. Stan quickly mentions that Christian has awakened 11 genes, all concentrated in his stomach, which may lead to weight gain and surpassing Stan's size. The idea of becoming fatter than Stan displeases Dins, and enduring the stomach pain isn't easy either. Exacerbates the situation by suggesting that Christian may become the first transmuted glutton in history. This provokes Dins, and he engages in a fight with Stan, asserting that Stan shouldn't delude himself because his 8 genes are concentrated in the speed of his hands, questioning his usefulness. Meanwhile, Christian inquires about the number of genes Dins has awakened. Awkwardly, Dins reveals that he has 14 hidden genes. The fight between the guys ceases, and they enthusiastically surround Dins, expressing their astonishment. They had only heard of people awakening 10 or more genes, but they never expected Dins to manifest as many as 14. However, to temper their excitement, Dins discloses that all his genes belong to mysterious types or wisdom type. They distance themselves from him immediately and refuse to help him, finding it difficult to believe what they just heard. Stan reflects on the challenging situation, noting that developing such genes is difficult, and finding employment related to them isn't immediate. Christian shares the story of a relative who, as an adept, changed jobs 7 times before becoming a monarch. Now, he is preparing to become an abbot. Dins interjects, arguing that scholars are not in high demand, as their work mainly revolves around the public. The options for choosing universities are also limited, with only a few offering programs suitable for their situation. Additionally, Dins's hidden type further complicates matters, as he is unaware of his abilities. He suggests reaching out to a university professor who may be able to assist him. Trying to lift his friend's spirits, Christian proposes they all go for a snack together, mentioning a place with a buffet. However, Dins declines, citing his headache, and promises to treat them next time. As they follow Dins, his friends wonder if he is alright. On the city streets, interactive advertising stands relay news about current events, including new federal policies, plans for space railways, and reports of missing students. There is also news about a famous team of heroes encountering drug dealers. Dins's headache persists, and he begins to suspect that his genes are causing it. A peculiar sensation awakens within him, and he wonders if it is his newfound ability. He senses an improved perception, noticing details about the cafe across the street, the arrangement of objects and the number of visitors. He even feels a connection to another room, such as the kitchen. However, he realizes that he cannot see very small objects, discovering a limitation to his ability. Frustrated, he decides to go home to practice. Yet, a strange feeling continues to nag at him, unrelated to his internal state. These feelings prove to be valid when he notices a man nearby clearly spying on him. Dins decides to walk a bit further to confirm his suspicions. After a few meters, he realizes that 3 individuals are indeed following him, keeping a certain distance. Aware that they are members of the Dawn Redemption organization, Dins frantically considers his options for escaping the situation. Calling the police seems futile, as they might not believe that a young kid has stumbled upon a notorious gang. Acting recklessly could lead to unconscious or fatal consequences. Ultimately, Dins concludes that he needs to contact Professor Hannah and spend the night at the police station until he finds a solution. The scene shifts to the City Hall of Amarants, where a meeting is in progress. Commander John, the head of the city's law enforcement officers, addresses the attendees, emphasizing the importance of submitting the annual student report. Disobeying this order would invite the wrath of the commander personally. During the meeting, Professor Hannah is in attendance. As Commander John delivers his speech, Hannah receives a distressing message on her phone. She seeks permission from John to interrupt him and share important news. Professor Hannah approached Director Vince, informing him that one of her students had reached out for assistance, claiming to be stalked by someone. She asked Vince if he will dispatch individuals to handle the situation or if she should personally take care of it. Commander John interjected, asking for an explanation of the situation, which caught Vince off guard. In response, Vince quickly checked his tablet to gather the relevant information. The director of the Secret Service assures Hannah not to worry, explaining that the pursuers following Dins, the student, were sent by their Secret Service. Dins will be safe with them. However, Hannah questions why 3 employees were dispatched for 1 student. Vince ponders this as well, noting that they initially sent 2 people. Hannah suspects that the 3rd person could be a member of the Dawn Redemption organization and insists that they should be eliminated for Dins's safety. She asks Vince if they will send someone or if she should handle the intruder herself. Vince believes it is unnecessary, stating that 2 agents are sufficient to protect the student. Hannah is furious that they may have discovered an enemy stalker, but Vince takes no action, suggesting that the Secret Service is using Dins as bait. Hank Smith, military university recruit director, interjects, supporting the rationality of the plan despite Dins having 14 hidden genes but being only an adite. He argues that the losses would be minimal, and Dins is an ideal bait. This horrifies Hannah, and she vehemently argues with them for using a student with numerous hidden genes as bait. She demands to know who authorized such an order. In a menacing tone, Commander John reveals that it was his decision, aiming to apprehend Dawn Redemption members within the building and minimize potential harm to university students caused by their activities. Hannah confronts him, stating that he cannot use a student who has recently awakened hidden genes as bait, especially if something goes wrong. John calmly responds that there are no contingencies in the plan and that the sacrifice of the polymath student's life was considered, ensuring the safety of many people and providing an advantage. Unable to tolerate such reasoning, Hannah apologizes for her actions, citing remaining matters that require her attention, and leaves abruptly. Hank tries to stop her, urging her not to leave the meeting, as the failure of the plan due to her rebellion would result in her facing trial by the council members. She forcefully removes his hand from her shoulder and declares that she won't do anything, but Dins needs to know about it. The commander permits her to inform Dins about the situation but strictly warns her not to reveal the plan. Hannah promptly sends a message to Dins while Hank stands behind her, reminding her to keep the plan confidential. Dins receives a message that clarifies the situation. He realizes that 2 of the individuals are agents assigned to protect him, while the 3rd person poses a potential threat. This revelation induces a heightened sense of panic in Dins. He understands that he is being used as bait and must find a way to escape. Seeking refuge from a deserted street, Dins enters a well-known coffee shop in the city of Amarants. The employee at the counter notices his tense demeanor and asks for his order. Dins, wanting to appear calm, orders hot tea with sweet potatoes and milk, emphasizing that the tea should be brewed thoroughly. After receiving the tea and a warning about its temperature, Dins leaves the shop. As Dins walks, he notices a tall man lingering near the entrance of the coffee shop. Suspicious, Dins slows his pace, allowing the man to come closer. Suddenly, Dins makes a swift turn and throws the scalding hot tea into the pursuer's face. The pursuer, caught off guard, clutches his burned face in anger. He approaches Dins with the intention of incapacitating or killing him. However, Dins's attempt to use the hot tea as a weapon fails, and he ends up being struck forcefully in the chest. The impact sends Dins crashing through a nearby store window, shattering the glass into pieces that narrowly miss pedestrians. As Dins recovers from the blow, he realizes that his opponent's genetically enhanced abilities likely reside in his legs. Determined to fight back, Dins musters his strength and points out the enemy, loudly accusing him of being a member of the Dawn Redemption organization. People nearby take notice of the commotion and panic ensues as they flee and call for help. The Secret Service agents, shocked by the unexpected turn of events, engage in a battle with the traitor while Dins observes. Despite the agents' prowess, the enemy proves to be a formidable opponent. During the fight, Dins experiences excruciating pain and feels helpless, realizing that he cannot assist the agents or protect others in danger. Disheartened by his limitations as an adite, he suddenly enters an unknown state of consciousness and observes his astral body. Upon closer examination, Dins comprehends that the 14 luminous points represent his awakened genes, while the gray points signify dormant genetic potential. Realizing he can perceive the inner workings of his body, Dins experiments with controlling the flow of energy. However, his attempts go awry, and a particular gene point in his hand begins to glow intensely. Meanwhile, the enemy continues to overpower the Secret Service agents, demonstrating superior strength and skill. Despite being outnumbered, he effortlessly evades their attacks. As the agents lie defeated, the enemy shifts his attention to Dins, who remains outside the building, urging him to surrender. The rival approaches the young man and warns him that no one will save him. He extends his hand towards him, but suddenly Dins wakes up and opens his eyes. The enemy is taken aback by this unexpected turn of events, and Dins takes advantage of his vulnerability. With a swift movement, Dins stabs the rival directly in the stomach with his right hand. The force of the blow matches the opponent's strength, sending him flying into the air. The impact creates an impressive dent in the wall, blocking his path. The Secret Service officers, who have regained their senses, can't believe what they are witnessing. They were told that Dins was just a mysterious types or wisdom type, but now they see him taking down the traitor. Without wasting a second, they fulfill their duty and move to apprehend the traitor. Meanwhile, a meeting is taking place at City Hall, but Hannah is distracted, constantly checking her mobile. She wonders why Dins hasn't been in touch and if he managed to escape his pursuers. Suddenly, Vince's phone rings, and his expression turns tense as he listens to the information relayed to him. The commander notices his reaction and asks for a report on the situation. Vince, the director of the Secret Service, starts mumbling, struggling to pronounce Dins' name clearly. Hannah, impatient, urges him to share what's wrong with Dins. John, losing his temper, accuses the service staff of incompetence, suspecting that Dins has been harmed. However, Vince denies it, stating that Dins not only escaped harm but also helped the agents fight back. With Dins's assistance, they were able to neutralize and capture a member of the Dawn Redemption organization. But now they face a new problem. The whole city is aware that the traitors are targeting Dins, which may hinder any further actions. The commander shares the same concern about how Dins discovered he was being pursued by a member of the Dawn Redemption. Frustrated, he slams his fist on the table, demanding to know who leaked the information to Dins. Hannah suggests sarcastically that they check his communication devices, implying that Dins must be resourceful. Understanding the commander's intent, Vince agrees to investigate and promises to deliver a 200-word report on his desk by the end of the day. Dins willingly accepts the order, and the Secret Service building in the city of Amarance becomes a flurry of activity. The pursuer's identity is established as Fred Paris, codenamed Underpants. The employees inform their boss that previously only rank F fighters were encountered, while Fred has a rank E, which explains why the two agents couldn't detain him. Meanwhile, Dins finds himself in the interrogation room, where he admits that he struck Fred himself. The employees attribute it to luck, assuming that Dins merely finished off an already exhausted enemy. Vince asks about Dins's current condition, and his assistant explains how Dins kept complaining about hunger. As a result, they decided to offer him a snack. When they enter the room, they witness Dins devouring pie after pie, realizing that the gene awakening not only causes headaches but also consumes physical energy. Dins understands that he is here for interrogation, as he had anticipated. He knows that he must conceal his strong ability, otherwise, he may end up on the surgical table for research purposes. Dins mentions receiving a message from Professor Hannah, implying that one of the observers was the culprit. Vince expresses gratitude to Dins for his courage and apologizes for the actions of his agents, whom he feels ashamed of. The director suspects Hannah of leaking information and acknowledges that Dins has handled himself well. He recognizes Dins's potential and informs him that he will be allowed to return home after signing a confidentiality agreement. As a reward for his assistance, Dins will receive 6 points and $50 in cash. Dins contemplates the situation, realizing that according to the national merit rules, jointly signed by the Genetic Commission, capturing a rank Y traitor earns 10 points. As he has been awarded the majority of points, he understands the significance of his achievement. The director, already standing up to leave, is stopped by Dins, who inquires if they plan to continue using him as bait. Vince explains that every year, more geniuses with higher gene counts emerge in different cities, many of whom become targets of the Dawn Redemption. Therefore, they have decided to work secretly with the Secret Service. As for Dins, he mentions that he awakened 16 genes that day and is now under the protection of Secret Service officers. However, there is one unsettling detail: the previous students with gene counts exceeding 15 were not as resourceful and were all captured. With that, Vince bids farewell and leaves to attend to his remaining duties. Immediately upon stepping outside, Dins reaches for his phone and dials Hannah's number. He informs her that he has applied to the Faculty of Asian Studies at Keir University and may soon become her student. Dins also shares that the director of the Secret Service informed him that he would continue to be used as bait to protect gifted students from disappearing. Wanting to confirm the truth of these claims, Dins asks Hannah, who confirms their accuracy. Recognizing the impending danger, Dins realizes that if he wants to shape his own destiny, he has only one path: to become stronger. Meanwhile, in the lobby of the Secret Service, the main computer lights up, transmitting a message that object number 37 has begun exhibiting unusual activity. If there is no response for an extended period, the task will be resolved according to plan number 1. 3 days later, good news arrives at the Dins household: Dins has been accepted into Keir University. His mother rejoices while Dins, barely able to crawl out of his room due to hunger, heads straight to the table for breakfast. His parents are overjoyed and want to share the good news with their relatives. Dins's constant hunger is not without reason. Over the past 3 days, he has been depleting his strength by activating another gene locus in his left leg. His body can no longer withstand the strain. Even while concentrating, Dins faints, and to his dismay, he realizes that his efforts had no effect. Strangely, his right hand seems to be more sensitive. However, Dins is determined to become stronger by attending the University of Genetic Evolution, where he will study advanced knowledge and apply it in practice. Before heading to the university, Dins's father offers some parting advice, instructing him not to engage in promiscuity and to do so only at night but not too frequently to avoid exhausting his body. Dins is taken aback by his father's unexpected words and tries to deny any misconceptions, but his father interrupts, announcing that he and Dins's mother have prepared a gift for him. Opening the box, Dins discovers rows of evenly laid capsules, energy capsules. His parents explain that the university will require significant resources, so they provide him with these energy capsules. Dins is surprised by this unexpected gift, as E-ranked capsules are usually only affordable for the majority of ordinary people, while F-ranked capsules are more common. Concerned that his parents have spent too much on him, Dins expresses his worries, but his father reassures him that he had accumulated savings over the years, more than enough to purchase these supplements. Dins's mother expresses her concerns about the Dawn Redemption bandits, wishing for her son's safety. Both parents emphasize the importance of taking care of himself. In the evening, in his room, Dins once again begins to awaken his genes and concentrates to enter the astral realm. After a while, he succeeds and observes numerous lines appearing in his left leg, indicating accumulated energy. He experiences physical pain, and his leg swells due to the excessive energy. Dins understands that concentrating the energy in one point could result in an explosion, so he intensifies his focus. The energy starts to distribute throughout his body, lighting up multiple points, including 2 additional ones in his left leg. The intense pain causes Dins to regain consciousness, and he struggles to catch his breath. He realizes he has successfully awakened 2 more gene loci. Exhausted, Dins collapses onto the bed, his body aching. He concludes that an E-rank energy capsule can only restore physical energy, not mental strength. Despite coming up with a potential solution to the problem, he succumbs to sleep. Dins is awakened by his mother's cries as she rushes to check if he is awake. Startled, Dins quickly jumps out of bed, but he underestimates the power of the newly awakened gene points. His jump propels him to the ceiling, and upon landing, pieces of the ceiling rain down on him. Concerned by the noise, his parents rush into his room to check on him, rubbing the back of his head to reassure them that he is fine. He tells his mother how hungry he is, but his parents notice another intriguing detail. Dins has managed to pump himself up so much that he himself feels how his strength has increased, and what surprises him is that the strength of his right palm has also improved. It seems that the genes in different parts of the body directly influence each other. To confirm this, Dins decides to test his abilities by throwing a playing card at a tin can in the room. However, despite his strength, all the cards he throws end up stuck in the wall. His throwing technique clearly needs improvement. His attention is then drawn to a plate filled with beans on the table. Dins has an idea that the airflow can change the flight path of a card since it is large but weighs little. However, this scheme would not work with soybeans. So, he fires one of the beans, and it flies with force, piercing the tin can. Dins is impressed by this sight and realizes that if he uses a metal ball instead of a bean and aims it at a person, the outcome could be fatal. This thought makes him happy because now he feels more confident that he can defend himself if he gets into trouble again. Finally, the day arrives for Dins's admission to the university. Many people gather to celebrate, and parents wish their children a bright future. Dins's mother tries to contain her emotions, while his father reminds him to take good care of himself and not hesitate to ask for help if needed. Suddenly, their friend Christian appears and reassures Dins's parents that everything is under control and he will look after Dins. However, he wonders where another friend, Stan, is. Dins explains that Stan called him in his spare time and revealed that he had been accepted into Kier University. Christian is dissatisfied with being left in the dark, but Dins explains that Stan didn't want to tell him due to his mother's insistence on him attending Coulter University for more opportunities. The only requirement for admission there is to join the army after graduation. Christian is not happy with this news, knowing the risks involved, but Dins tries to reassure him, stating that Stan is a genetic talent and well prepared for combat. As the students prepare to leave for the university, Dins says goodbye to his parents, who shout after him to keep them informed. The students bring their things and try to get comfortable in the transport that will take them to the university. Christian throws his suitcase onto a shelf and promises himself that he will have an affair with the first beauty of the university. However, some nearby students mock him, teasing him about his genes located in his stomach and how they allegedly prevent him from entering buffets. Dins stands up for his friend and orders the mocker to shut his mouth. The situation escalates, and a man who appears to be a professor intervenes, instructing them to settle their issues outside. He grabs Dins's shoulders and advises him to forget about it, as there are teachers present. Dins finally tells the mocker to keep quiet for his own safety. The teacher, named Roast F, introduces himself as working in the education department and is appointed to accompany them. He hopes the students will listen to his commands and maintain discipline during the journey. As they sit down, Christian advises Dins to calm down and asks if he knows who is sitting next to the mocker. It turns out to be a student named Braun, a real prodigy, demonstrated his exceptional abilities by awakening 16 genes during a single test. He recalls that the director of the Secret Service, Vince, may have mentioned another student who is sitting not far from them. Alongside them is Kyla, a talented and beautiful girl whom Christian believes is the perfect combination of strength and beauty. Dins jokingly asks Christian to stop making him blush and to wipe that silly grin off his face. Professor Hannah, whom they are already familiar with, enters the room, capturing everyone's attention with her charm and attractiveness. She introduces herself as their accompanying professor and assures the students that they can approach her with any questions or requests for help. Dins's heart starts beating faster as he wonders if the professor also boarded the same transport. Meanwhile, the convoy continues its journey, and Commander John receives a report that the convoy, with each vehicle equipped with a generator of ultrafine radiation particles, has set off. All signals, except for the military communication channel, have been turned off to minimize the risk of being attacked by criminal organizations who have lost their source of fighting forces due to the single genetic test policy. The commander becomes cautious as he knows the enemy may set up an ambush along the route. With about 100 cars in the convoy, finding the one with the students becomes a challenging task. John understands that their top priority is the safety of machine number 3, where Dins, Christian, Ron, and Kyla are, as they are the students with the most genes this year. The treacherous organization has likely noticed their car. Although their destination is in the east, they are deliberately heading west to confuse their enemies. As Dins gazes out the window, he observes the entwined forest vines and abundant plant growth, wondering how long it has been since people last stepped foot in the wilderness. He contemplates the idea of visiting it in the future. Roast, the professor, interrupts his thoughts, urging everyone to pay attention as they will reach the first supply point in 30 minutes. The escort warns that they only have 3 minutes there and should not approach the wall to avoid being harmed by the heavily armed soldiers. They reached supply point number 1, where their vehicles were allowed entry into the facility. Inside, they witnessed fighter aircraft soaring through the air above. As they disembarked from the vehicles, military personnel and students stepped onto the ground. Both our main character and his friend were captivated by the remarkable sight before them. However, their astonishment quickly turned to shock as our main character spotted something that took them by surprise: genetically modified soldiers. This revelation made it clear to them that this area was an extremely perilous and high-security zone. Amidst the scene, a soldier issued a warning to everyone, emphasizing the need to swiftly return to their respective vehicles after the break. The students quickly rushed to the restrooms after hours on the road. Dins notices that a man has locked himself in one of the booths and time is almost up. Using his telepathic abilities, he discreetly tries to determine who is inside. To his surprise, he discovers that it is their teacher, Roast, who is attempting to consume something. Startled by a strange sensation, Roast opens the door and scans the area but finds no one. Dins, hiding behind a wall, suspects that the teacher is up to something secretive. Concerned, he decides to seek help from the soldiers at the supply point. Dins informs the soldiers that their teacher was acting suspiciously and attempting to consume something while hiding in one of the booths. However, instead of taking him seriously, the soldiers burst into laughter. Dins tries to explain himself, but their amusement is interrupted by the announcement that they have only 30 seconds to return to their seats. Dins hurries back as the cars are about to resume their journey. Roast, who is accompanying him, waits at the gangway and begins scolding Dins for making everyone wait. At the entrance of the transport, Dins musters the courage to ask the teacher about what he was eating. This question catches Roast off guard, and he starts yelling, not understanding what Dins is talking about. With a smile, Dins clarifies that he was just curious if there was a canteen on the base. Apologizing to everyone for the delay, Dins walks to his seat, unable to shake off the feeling that Roast is hiding something. As the convoy leaves the base, Dins discreetly observes the escort while his friend Christian offers him a snack. Dins also made a note that the suspect had 2 dentures, but something seemed off about him. He was uncertain whether he should inform the soldiers about this or if they were already aware. To avoid putting himself at risk unnecessarily, he decided not to report it. However, there was one person he could trust without a doubt. Dins approached Professor Hannah and requested permission to sit next to her. Intrigued, Hannah allowed him to sit beside her, sparking a heated discussion among the other students who believed that someone like Dins shouldn't be sitting with a goddess like Hannah. Unfazed by the comments, Hannah was curious to know what Dins wanted from her. Dins began to explain the situation about the suspicious behavior of Teacher Roast, specifically mentioning his peculiar dentures. He handed Hannah his phone, which contained detailed notes about the incident. Hannah immediately stood up and approached Teacher Roast, asking for permission to check his mouth. Roast, alarmed by the situation, also stood up but was quickly overpowered by Hannah's force, causing him to fall to the floor. The soldiers, noticing the commotion, took a defensive stance and aimed their weapons at. However, Hannah, with a commanding presence, ordered them to stand down, and they reluctantly complied. Meanwhile, Hannah restrained Teacher Roast while he questioned her actions. Dins, following Hannah's orders, approached the suspect and tried to remove his dentures. He successfully retrieved 2 dentures and handed them to Hannah for further analysis. With just a glance, Hannah realized that they were magnetized tantalum transmitters, extremely rare devices capable of bypassing conventional protection. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Hannah wanted to know who Roast had been passing the information to. Roast laughed, confident that even though he had been discovered, nothing could be done now. However, Unbeknownst to him, the transport convoy had already started moving towards their destination. An employee burst into the commander's office, reporting that vehicle number 3 had deviated from the intended route. Hannah, in direct communication with the commander, informed him that they had apprehended an enemy spy and that their route had been compromised. Commander John was furious and ordered immediate action to be taken. He instructed the convoy to redirect to vehicle number 3 and change the route. All the vehicles turn right to avoid ambush as their route was compromised. Additionally, he requested aviation support from nearby military units. As they moved forward to assist, the controller at the control panel noticed several flying objects in the air. The enemies launched energy charges towards the transport column. However, the discharges were too fast, and the middle of the column had already been hit. Realizing that the enemy had precision weapons, John took charge and instructed the remaining vehicles to hold the line and await reinforcements. Hannah declared an emergency and ordered everyone to dismantle their seats as per the instructions. The students followed her orders, using the dismantled seats as shields. Slowly, they lowered the cars down the ramp while explosions and gunfire erupted around them. The commander arrived on the battlefield and ordered the launch of projectiles with electromagnetic interference and guided mines to counter the enemy's devilish impulsive guns. As the battle intensified, an object appeared in the air, and the guidance systems targeted it, unleashing a barrage of shots. From the smoke emerged enemies equipped with guns, maneuvering deftly in the air on flying boards. However, they were met with resistance from local troops who fought back and successfully brought down many enemy aircraft. Observing how skillfully the people who emerged from their car wielded weapons, Dins realized that the soldiers were undercover, disguised as students. It became evident that the army had prepared more thoroughly than expected. The commander received information that reinforcements would arrive in about 3 minutes. Suddenly, the ground beneath them started shaking, and John realized that something significant was about to happen. He shouted that the enemy was underground, prompting everyone to jump and lift their heels off the ground. As they did, stone-like spears emerged from the ground, claiming the lives of many soldiers. It became clear to everyone that this was not just a weapon, it was the ability of a hidden-type mutant. Hannah quickly identified the attacker as a genetically altered V-rank mutant with limited attack range. The troops noticed 2 opponents in the distance, one of whom launched a deadly attack. The soldiers concentrated their fire on the enemies, but the opponents skillfully evaded and deflected bullets with a katana. The enemy taunted that training soldiers was futile and that they would all die. With a surge of strength, the enemy expanded and intensified the spears, pushing them towards the soldiers. Simultaneously, the ground beneath the ordinary students started collapsing. The enemy's target was a car with students. As things couldn't get any worse, the commander swiftly moved to neutralize the enemy. In a swift motion, John cut through the enemy's katana and impaled him with a spear, resulting in a powerful explosion. As the enemy's accomplice was thrown to the side, his henchmen rushed to his aid. The hidden Gene man ordered them to buy him more time. Finally, help arrived for the group. Christian noticed that the commander had drawn all the enemy fire to himself, shielding himself from harm. John continued to withstand the onslaught of opponents, scattering them with his spear. Strange sounds resembling the clatter of paws and hooves reverberated from the forest. The group realized that mutants had come to aid their enemy. The army opened fire on the mutants, but they proved to be agile. Tigers destroyed cannons, wolves attacked soldiers with their claws and teeth. Dins realized that the last line of defense was almost destroyed. Teacher Roast, lying on the ground, continued to gloat, but Hannah silenced him by trampling on his head. She reassured the panicking students that other teachers were present to protect them. The teachers, who possessed multiple abilities, acted as the last line of defense. One of the mutants was about to attack the remaining soldiers, but a teacher intervened, grabbing the tiger's skull and applying force. Another individual comes to their aid, using his steel claws with surging electrical energy dispatched the wolves in an instant. Commander John urged everyone to quickly move toward the third vehicle, which was being targeted by the traitors. Hannah confirmed that the group had already understood this. Din speculated that the professor also possessed a hidden type ability and wondered how she would fight. To his surprise, Hannah simply used metal balls, inflicting lethal damage on the enemies. Hannah noticed an enemy with his paw on a student's neck and swiftly attacked him, causing the tiger to release the hostage. The enemy grew angry, questioning the absence of distant support units. Meanwhile, energy charges were directed towards Hannah, but she managed to use a shield to block them. The enemy continued their relentless attacks, prompting Hannah to reinforce her shield. The enemy called for reinforcements, and giant eagles swooped down to attack the group. Redoubling their efforts, both the army and the teachers found themselves rapidly losing ground amidst the chaos. In the midst of it all, Dins heard Kyla's desperate screams for help. He looked up to see an enraged wolf descending upon her from above. Grateful that he had brought a steel ball as a precaution, Dins acted swiftly. The ball flew so fast that Kyla barely had time to comprehend how the wolf, which had nearly killed her, ended up with a hole in its neck. However, this maneuver did not go unnoticed by a mutant tiger, who had already marked Dins as his next target. The tiger charged towards Dins, hovering menacingly above him. Just as it seemed that all hope was lost, Christian suddenly appeared, placing his shield in front of Dins. Unfortunately, it was unlikely that Christian's shield alone could withstand the power of the mutant. The tiger's punch sent Christian crashing into a nearby rock, leaving a noticeable dent. Thinking quickly, Dins decided to employ an old trick. Summoning all his strength, he launched another steel ball towards the enemy. The tiger failed to dodge the attack, and as it landed on its paws, a visible abrasion from the ball appeared on its forehead. However, to Dins's terror, it became apparent that the mutant's skull was incredibly resilient. The ball hadn't killed him, and he was now closing in on Dins. Just as the mutant was about to reach Dins, powerful plant stems emerged from the ground, swiftly entangling and immobilizing the tiger. Kyla, utilizing her own abilities, came to Dins's aid. Urging him to hurry, she assisted in restraining the mutant. Dins once again retrieved his steel balls and hurled them as far as he could. The tiger laughed, thinking Dins had missed his mark. Unbeknownst to the tiger, Dins's plan had succeeded. The balls had flown into the forest, where additional traitor troops lay hidden. At that moment, Hannah ceased her shelling and realized the true location of her primary target. The bound mutant screamed for his comrades to continue firing at Hannah and deny her any opportunity. However, it was too late. Hannah unleashed her power once more, launching a barrage of balls at the enemy. This line of defense crumbled under her overwhelming force, shattering even the crowns of perennial trees into splinters. The mutant broke free from the entangling vines and lunged toward Dins, who was disoriented and unable to regain his bearings. But just as the tiger closed in on Dins, a ball pierced through its skull, eliciting a resounding death cry. Dins's savior turned out to be none other than Professor Hannah. All the mutants, including celestial creatures, were repelled by her presence. Help also arrived from the air, as ships launched an assault on the remaining mutants. The sight of the warships lifted the commander's spirits, and he felt a glimmer of hope. One of the main traitors gave the order to retreat, acknowledging the failure of their operation due to their inability to eliminate Hannah. However, John, the commander, had no intention of letting the enemy escape. He pressed forward, rapidly advancing toward the traitor. In a desperate move, the enemy commanded their minions to execute the third emergency evacuation plan, lining up in a single file. Suddenly, the obedient soldiers raised their heads and detonated simultaneously, creating a wave of explosions. At that moment, Hannah's strength gave out, and she lost consciousness, beginning to descend towards the ground. Dins, noticing this, rushed forward, using all his speed to catch the falling professor before she made contact with the ground. Holding the exhausted Hannah in his arms, Dins felt a sense of relief that he had managed to catch her. Emerging from the smoke, John wondered how he had allowed his subordinates to sacrifice themselves to escape. His soldiers informed him that they were initiating pursuit of the enemy, but John halted their advance, instructing them to fortify their position and tend to the wounded. At the start of the operation, John had been confident in their success, but everything had gone awry. Some time later, Christian regained consciousness on a hospital couch, feeling intense pain throughout his body. Dins advised him not to move and to rest. Christian complied, lying back down, eager to learn the fate of their enemy. Dins reassured him that, with their combined efforts, they had driven the enemy into retreat. These words brought solace to Christian, who had feared his life was over. He expressed relief at having survived, even though he sustained minor injuries and was prescribed 3 months of rest. Christian expressed gratitude that teacher Hannah had intervened, preventing a far more tragic outcome. His last recollection was of snipers targeting Hannah, pinning her down. Dins's attempt to provide a detailed account of recent events is interrupted when Kyla rushes into the first aid station. She informs Dins that Professor Hannah has regained consciousness. Urgently, she calls Dins to accompany her to Hannah's room. Inside, Kyla explains that she fulfilled Hannah's request by bringing Dins there. Hannah inquired if he had caught her before she lost consciousness. He responded with a smile, explaining that his body had moved instinctively to prevent her from falling to the ground. Curious, Hannah then asked if he was also the one who had removed the blood from her body. Taken aback, he blushed and shyly replied that he wouldn't dare to touch her body. With a mischievous smile, Kyla revealed that she was the one who had taken care of the blood and changed Hannah's clothes. Hannah throws off her blanket and requests to be taken away, as she needs to speak with the commander. Dins rushes to the bed, ready to assist Hannah in getting up, but she doesn't react positively to his gesture. Kyla chuckles in the background and suggests that she would be better suited to help Hannah. Feeling embarrassed, Dins quickly withdraws his hands from Hannah. Meanwhile, the traitor is being electrocuted and screams for the torture to continue without mercy. Hannah enters the room accompanied by Kyla and Dins. John, the commander, inquires about Hannah's well-being. He reports that she is feeling better and expresses gratitude for their care. Hannah then asks about the progress regarding the traitor. John explains that no amount of torture or drugs could force him to speak, and his neighbors revealed that his family had disappeared. Hannah wonders what will be done about it, to which John believes the traitor should face a military court. Reports that the enemy has made a technological breakthrough with the transmitters. They have been removed and replaced with prosthetics, which cannot be presented as evidence in court. The traitor laughs loudly, claiming innocence and vowing that Dins will be held accountable for everything. Hannah questions the commander if wartime rules are still in effect. John replies that he declared a military situation after the attack. Hannah suggests that another attack is imminent and urges them to intensify the interrogation of the spy. The commander wholeheartedly agrees and orders the use of unconventional methods during the interrogation. Hearing this, the traitor starts shouting that they have no right to do that. However, upon seeing Hannah approaching him, he panics and promises to answer all questions. Hannah realizes that he has already covered his tracks, and his accomplices likely know he was captured, making him of no value. She uses her abilities on him, causing his body to contort. The traitor emits death rattles, and then John swiftly strikes his throat with a dagger, sparing Hannah from carrying out the act herself. John admits that he doesn't want her to bear that burden, as he has already taken many lives. Orders the interrogation to be recorded as lasting 5 minutes. He notices Dins and praises him for his contributions, acknowledging that everyone is indebted to him. John notes that Dins was able to identify the pursuer and uncover the spy's identity. Feeling unsure of how to respond, Dins humbly claims it was his duty. Later, while walking along the street at night, Kyla asks Hannah why the traitor wasn't shot on the spot. Hannah explains that they will come to understand that there are certain laws and sometimes the bad people understand them better than the good people. She also reveals that the commander called her for a reason, as they are on different sides, and if he were to report her presence, it would give higher-ups more confidence to stay hidden. Dins and Kyla realize with horror that their enemies have anticipated their actions, and it was all a trap. Hannah emphasizes that the real world is vastly different from the one they knew, filled with lies and deceit, where enemies lurk everywhere. She emphasizes the importance of working hard to survive in the new era and learning the ability to protect themselves is the first essential lesson. With air support diligently patrolling the sky, scanning the area with surveillance lights, Dins, Hannah, and Kyla turned their gaze forward, ready for the next leg of their journey. The equipment convoy, accompanied by air support, continues its journey. Kyla believes that if they were accompanied by the air forces, the enemies would be too afraid to attack. However, Dins reminds her that the guards accompanying the convoy are from other schools that have recently been liberated and flown there. While lying on the couch and eating a corn dog, Christian argues that the person who was managing the land yesterday is a real troublemaker. He nearly destroyed the entire convoy, and even the commander couldn't catch him. Hannah joins the conversation and suggests that all the enemy's actions were carefully planned. She speculates that they were aided by someone with special abilities, referred to as the owner of earthly genes. Hannah also mentions that Kyla has the ability to control plants and radiation, and without the plants on the battlefield, she would have had difficulty containing a mutant. Therefore, Kyla and Dins consider themselves fortunate. One of the students decides to ask about their professor's rank. Hannah believes that they can now determine that she is a permanently changed C rank. Dins is surprised by this news, as he learns that an S rank allows someone to become a professor at Genetics University. Hannah adds that for the transcendental type, a professor must undergo a complete transformation, while the requirements for the hidden type are relatively lenient. However, individuals with special abilities may be exempted from strict requirements. Kyla doesn't want to be left behind and expresses her curiosity about her own abilities. Hannah advises her not to reveal her abilities to others in the future, as it would ensure their longevity. Everyone confirms that they understand and agree with Hannah's advice. However, Dins raises a concern about reporting their genetic data upon enrollment. He wonders if it might be problematic, but Hannah assures them that their data will be highly confidential. As they approach a large metropolis, the group finally arrives at Kyoto. They observe flying skateboards outside the window, which are quite expensive. They start fantasizing about owning those skateboards. At that moment, Meth, one of the classmates, mocks them, calling them a bunch of naive individuals who have never experienced the wider world. Christian approaches Dins and asks if Kyla has feelings for him since she was constantly by his side the previous day. Dins hesitates to respond, but then Kyla decides to join the guys, further embarrassing Dins. Eventually, the cars reach the university, and a loudspeaker announcement instructs the students to gather their belongings and exit the vehicles. They are also informed that the entrance test will take place tomorrow. Christian worries that he won't pass the test in his current state and fears immediate expulsion. Dins suggests inquiring about the possibility of taking the test at a later date. Fortunately, paramedics are already approaching them and, upon seeing Christian, they instruct him to go with them, assuring him that he will be excused from any activities for the time being. Christian can't believe his luck and decides to confirm if it's free of charge, which pleases him even more, as the university will cover all his expenses during that period. Despite his diagnosis, Christian quickly jumps onto the bed, eager to receive treatment. Kyla asks Dins what's happening to their comrade, but Dins only replies that their comrade is happy because he will be eating for free for a month. Finally, the main character arrives at his room, feeling exhausted from the events of the day. He contemplates training but realizes that it's not the right time. Although his parents told him not to worry about money, he knows that progress in training comes at a cost. To achieve AC rank in tomorrow's test, he needs to accumulate at least 20 gene points, but he's currently 2 points short. If he can break through today, it would solve almost 1/3 of the entire year's training costs. In the morning, still tired from yesterday's training, he wakes up on the floor to a knock on his door. Opening the door, he finds Professor Hannah, who enters without hesitation and asks him to close the door. She hands him a piece of paper with words written on it and asks him to focus and read it using his telepathic ability. The paper contains information about kilograms of apples and their price per unit. Hannah informs Dins that it's time to put on his pants and get ready. Dins agrees but privately thinks that Hannah herself was involved in some shady activities, and now she's giving him orders. Suddenly, another student named Nico bursts into the room. Embarrassingly, Nico sees a scene of Dins struggling to put on his pants with a beautiful girl standing nearby. Feeling awkward, Nico quickly exits the room. Dins is taken aback by the situation, but Hannah seems unfazed by typical teenage behavior. She asks Dins how many base points he has awakened so far. Dins admits to having opened 20 points and wonders if he has a chance of achieving AC rank. Hannah assures him that with hard work, he can reach that rank. However, she wants to share something important with him. Hannah advises Dins not to reveal his full strength during the upcoming testing. Dins wonders where his telepathic ability might be useful, and he suggests surveillance. Hannah agrees, stating that it's the ideal option. She warns Dins that if others find out about his abilities, he will be drawn into the internal conflicts and intrigues of the university. Dins understands and agrees to hide at least half of his strength, especially since he belongs to the hidden type faculty. Hannah asks if this arrangement suits him, and Dins gives a positive response. With his consent, Hannah allows him to sign a report, stating that he neutralized the enemy during an attack. Dins hesitates, as he believes it was Hannah who killed the enemy, not him. However, Hannah insists that without Dins, things wouldn't have worked out for her, and she promises him a monetary reward from the association. Dins decides to sign the report, considering the extra money beneficial. After finishing their conversation, Hannah informs Dins that she and Christian need to take the test. Dins mentions that Christian is currently undergoing treatment, causing some confusion. Leaning closer to the door, they hear Nico approaching, quickly moves to the side, pretending to wander in the corridor. Hannah and Dins leave the room, and when Nico sees them, he jokingly comments on Dins spending the night with the Ice Queen goddess of the faculty. Dins tries to explain that Nico misunderstood the situation, but Nico remains skeptical, believing Dins and Hannah were alone together. Dins reveals that he shares a dorm room with a person named Christian, who has been residing in the medical center for some time. Nico is astounded by this information and starts to believe that Dins intentionally harmed his dorm mate to ensure he could be alone with Hannah. This frustrates Dins, as he feels that Nico's imagination is exaggerating the situation. Dins worries that if Nico continues spreading these baseless claims to others, it will hinder their ability to establish positive relationships within the school. Consequently, Dins decides to silence Nico and prevent him from discussing this unfounded nonsense. Dins suggests they make a bet to force Nico into silence. The bet involves Dins throwing a metal ball at Nico, and if Nico dodges it, he will reveal the truth. If Nico fails to dodge, he must keep quiet. Nico agrees, and they take their positions. Despite Nico's confidence, Dins quickly throws 2 balls at him, hitting him with the second one. Nico accuses Dins of cheating, but Dins points out that they never specified any rules regarding the number of balls or throwing with a specific hand. Nico reluctantly accepts the outcome, promising not to mention the incident again. Dins realizes that his training from the previous day was not in vain, as his left hand is now as capable as his right. He and Nico head to the test center, parting ways afterward. Dins easily goes to the office he needs, as there is no queue for the Asian class. The employee informs him that his blood sampling results show that he has awakened a total of 20 gene base points, which allows him to move to a low C rank according to the rules. She also suggests that due to his telepathic skill, he should undergo testing on a specialized device. If his abilities demonstrate good results, he will be granted an average C rank. As Dins leaves the office, his main concern is how to achieve a high score in telepathy testing without drawing excessive attention. Upon entering the testing room, he notices a tense student across from him, struggling to discern the contents of a dark box. Observing another student being graded, Dins realizes that if he can advance 2 ranks like the previous student, it would suffice. Utilizing his skill, he determines the optimal distance and clarity needed to measure his telepathic abilities accurately. He aims to control his distance to achieve a good score while ensuring he receives an average C rank without attracting undue attention. During the test, Dins notices one of the examiners observing him, causing a shiver of suspicion. To divert attention, he pretends his eyes suddenly itch. Dins recognizes that he must remain focused and complete the test without getting distracted. In the midst of his examination, the professor calls him and asks him to use his telepathic abilities to perceive the contents of a box beside him. The professor instructs Dins to document what he sees, including any symbols or objects inside the box. Dins agrees to the task and begins to employ his telepathy. As he experiments, he tests the extent of his telepathic range and discovers that he can now perceive objects up to a distance of 3.24 meters, whereas previously it was only 3.12 meters, indicating a growth of 12 centimeters. Recalling a conversation with Hannah, Dins reflects on the advice to restrain and conceal half of his power. He ponders what grade he could achieve if he were to unleash his full potential, possibly even attaining an excellent or exceptional rating. However, he values leading a normal life over becoming a spy. Dins realizes that if he were to reveal the true extent of his abilities, he would undoubtedly be assigned the role of a spy. The result was revealed. His sensing distance extends to approximately 1.63 meters. Despite the temptation to display his full strength and secure a high score, Dins resists, desiring to maintain a low profile. He is ultimately awarded a low C rank, with his telepathy ability assessed as normal. Unexpectedly, a teacher approaches Dins outside the office and introduces himself as Assistant Professor John Paul from the Faculty of Mental Telepathy. Impressed by Dins's telepathic abilities, he invites Dins to transfer to his department. Dins, however, insists that his abilities are ordinary and declines the offer, surprising the teacher. Nico, having overheard about special recruitment quotas and rank increases, becomes angry, thinking everything is favoring Dins again. Dins contemplates the tempting offer but ultimately refuses, as his hidden type aligns more with the faculty of Hannah. Professor John's behavior becomes strange upon learning that Hannah was Dins's teacher. He experiences trembling and cold sweat, but he quickly regains composure and continues to insist that Dins should consider the faculty's offer. Observing these mood swings, Dins thanks the professor and bids him farewell. Walking with Nico down the corridor, Dins tries to ascertain if his extraordinary beam-throwing ability influenced his rank increase. Nico is perplexed by Dins's inquiries and advises him to forget about such ideas. Continuing on, Dins proceeds to test the strength of his palm. As he approaches the entrance, the system scans him to confirm his identity as Dins. Suddenly, his watch receives multiple notifications of unread messages. Deciding to check them later, Dins plans to do so after completing the test, considering the long wait in line. Unexpectedly, chaos ensues as a large individual pushes through the queue, claiming priority due to their middle E-rank powers. Arguments break out among those who agree to let the person pass and those who find it unacceptable. In general, individuals with higher authority are given precedence in public facilities and services. If someone with lower authority obstructs a person with higher authority, they can be arrested and convicted. Regular civilians typically hold F-rank credentials and require significant time to upgrade their skills and advance to higher ranks. In a university where all students possess F-rank credentials, a person with E-rank credentials holds considerable power, not to mention those with superior ranks. Dins contemplates whether the individual bypassing the line is exceptionally strong or benefited from familial privileges, effectively dispersing the entire queue. The brute approaches Dins and demands that he move, citing his E-rank status. Dins, however, stands his ground and refuses to give in to the bully's intimidation. Enraged, the brute's demeanor changes, and he yells at Dins to leave immediately. Curious about his remaining time before his turn, Dins asks the teacher. The teacher informs him that he is next in line and the wait will be approximately 3 to 5 minutes. Frustrated by this response, the brute lifts Dins off the ground, preparing to strike him. Swiftly, Dins stops the bully's fist, surprising him. As a result, the brute forcefully bends his own fist in the opposite direction, producing a loud cracking sound of bones. The pain causes the brute to release Dins and clutch his injured arm. Unable to bear the public humiliation, the brute swings his good arm at Dins, but Dins anticipates the attack and swiftly strikes the unprotected groin of his opponent. The bully falls to his knees in pain while Dins's onlookers wince in sympathy. The bully's henchmen, witnessing their leader's defeat, decide to retaliate and attack Dins. However, before they can unleash their hidden techniques, Dins retrieves his metal balls and hurls them at the necks of his opponents. The 4 hooligans are swiftly defeated and lie on the floor, groaning in pain. Nico, observing from the queue, experiences another bout of envy, amazed at how easily Dins defeated 4 opponents who held high ranks. Dins warns the bullies that if they provoke him again, he will aim for their eyes and heads with his metal balls. The students in the vicinity record the entire scene on their phones, and the video quickly gains popularity on the internet. Feeling exposed and unsuccessful in maintaining a low profile, Dins realizes that his attempts to remain invisible have been in vain. The bully recovers and attempts to intimidate the people who filmed the incident, threatening them with consequences. Nico steps in and consoles her comrades, assuring them that disciplinary authorities will soon arrive. Dins remains unafraid of any accusations against him, as the surveillance cameras have captured evidence that he was attacked first and acted in self-defense. However, Nico expresses concern that from the department's perspective, all 4 assailants were defeated while Dins remained unscathed. Even if Dins's account is true, he may still face some form of punishment. Confused about the situation, Dins questions what he did wrong. In response, Nico explodes, revealing that the bully, Albert Holland, possesses significant powers in preventing a person of higher rank from passing is punishable by law, with expulsion and compensation for medical expenses being the most severe penalties. Dins expresses gratitude for the information and decides to postpone reading his unread messages. Instead, he quickly confirms all the pending actions sent to him. The messages indicate that he is being promoted to a low-ranking position, and he receives money transfers from various foundations. Nico observes a disturbing grin forming on her friend's face as the senior student decides to alleviate Dins's predicament. He offers to accompany to the first aid station, persuading Albert not to blow the situation out of proportion. The senior student proposes that Nico apologize to everyone involved, kneel down, and pay moral damages to settle the matter. Dins expresses gratitude for the help but assures them that he can handle his own problems. He suggests that Albert explain the situation to the department without blaming him for not yielding. Albert, looking down on Dins, warns him that he will regret his words. A representative from the department scolds the group for violating rules before passing all the entrance tests. They order everyone to be sent to the department for interrogation, review the surveillance camera footage, interview witnesses, students, and teachers. Albert seizes the opportunity to emphasize his E-rank status, claiming that he simply requested passage but was refused and subsequently attacked. The inspector verifies Albert's rank to be genuine, granting him the authority to provide his account without being interrogated. Albert jubilantly taunts Dins, questioning his courage. However, Dins remains composed and informs the representative that he holds the authority of AD rank, which catches Albert off guard. Albert attempts to expose Dins's lie by laughing hysterically, but even the representative doubts that a freshman could possess such a rank. After verifying the data, the representative confirms Dins's low D rank and instructs him to write a report to be sent to the discipline department. The representative introduces himself as Finn and reminds everyone to follow the discipline rules. The hooligans depart with the discipline department representatives, having clearly lost the battle. The teacher on the screen calls for silence, announcing the resumption of the assessment. Dins finally manages to pass the test, and the observer rewards him for his efforts. The teachers show favoritism towards Dins, mistaking him for a descendant of heroes, even overlooking his tardiness during the test. After the test, Dins proceeds to the registration and payment office, where an employee informs him that his average grade is AC rank. The tuition fees amount to $11,600 per year, and the training materials cost $111. Due to his low D rank authority, Dins receives a 5% discount, reducing his payment to $6,200. In the hall behind him, whispers circulate, suggesting that he might be the young man who stood up against Albert. Dins overhears these conversations and dislikes being mistaken for some sort of hero descendant. With the completion of the reception procedure, Dins receives a message on his watch from Professor Hannah, inviting him to the Genetics Research Institute. Grateful for the special quota that raised his rank, Dins plans to express his gratitude to her. In the professor's office, Hannah invites Dins to sit down and proceeds to explain the 3 reasons for calling him. However, Dins finds himself unable to focus on her words, captivated by her beauty. Hannah threatens to transfer him to the insight class if he continues to stare. Dins admits that she is indeed breathtaking and fears he might lose consciousness if he gazes at her for too long. Eventually, Hannah redirects the conversation and shares the 3 reasons for summoning him. Firstly, the mayor's defense command sent an apology letter, which she hands to Dins. He questions the purpose of receiving an apology himself, believing it should have been directed towards the injured students and soldiers. Secondly, Dins is now an intern at Research Institute number 14, where he will be assigned various tasks. As a bonus, he will receive E-rank energy capsules every month. Hannah inquires if Dins has any objections to these arrangements, to which he responds, eager to learn how to use his powers. Bonuses or not, the third piece of news concerns Dins's training and the importance of mental strength for entering the Hidden Institute. The use of abilities is dependent on mental strength, and the institute itself is focused on genetic abilities. Hannah demonstrates this by throwing metal balls that float without touching anything in her office. The teacher explains that developing mental strength is just as crucial as unique abilities. There are various secret cultivation methods, including the genetic-based inner vision technique. It is believed that only a small number of genetically modified individuals, known as mutants, possess inner vision. Students who use this technique can discover an average of 15 gene base points, which can be either useful or useless, with potential side effects. Dins finds some happiness in this news, realizing that luck plays a role. However, Hannah corrects him, stating that safer methods of awakening genes have been developed over the past 100 years. She also mentions that those with their type, like Dins, have a greater chance of discovering new genes. Hannah emphasizes that the full development of abilities requires the formation of chains of genetic abilities. Dins wonders about the other functions of inner vision besides awakening new genes, but Hannah explains that there isn't much to it beyond that. Dins feels that his inner vision is different from others, and Hannah provides him with training methods to practice. Later, as Dins and Nico talk in their new rooms, Nico reveals that their problems with the Holland family have been resolved. The Holland family used their influence to make the issues go away, including talking to Nico's father. Nico assures Dins that the Holland family won't affect their university, but Dins is still bothered by their audacity. Nico warns Dins to be careful with the Holland family, but Dins suspects that Nico was sent to soften him up and prevent his expulsion. This suspicion turns out to be true. Nico gives Dins a card with a large sum of money as an apology from the Holland family and asks him to write that the incident was just a small fight among students. After Nico leaves, Dins contemplates the wealth he now possesses and decides to try the training methods recommended by Hannah. However, his concentration is disrupted by thoughts of Hannah and a message from Kyla, his neighbor, which excites him. Meanwhile, Albert reports to his colleagues that the issues have been resolved, but they won't seek revenge on Dins due to his studies in a different faculty and their slim chance of encountering him. One of the hooligans refuses to calm down and devises a plan for revenge against Dins. Their plan involves using the internet to spread hatred towards Dins among the students of the Transcendental University. The next day at the university, V walks down the street with bags of food, contemplating whether Albert is actually not so bad. He decides to check the news and is surprised to find angry posts about himself, realizing that someone deliberately orchestrated this to provoke a conflict between him and the university. Despite this, Dins chooses not to let it bother him and focuses on the upcoming opening ceremony. During the ceremony, the director of the university, named Sean, gives a speech emphasizing independent thinking and releases purple lightning into the sky. The students' ears become blocked, but the lightning suddenly disappears, revealing a clear sky. Suddenly, a man descends from the sky, resembling Superman, but it turns out to be the director named Pete. The students cheer as the ceremony concludes. In the first class, a teacher named Tam introduces himself as the instructor for spiritual power training and the basics of the hidden type. He mentions the horn on his head, which is a result of a training error. Dins realizes that this relates to useless genes mentioned by Hannah's teacher. Tam allows students who desire horns to sleep on them. The lesson begins with the distribution of teaching materials, and Tam emphasizes the importance of spiritual power. He instructs the students to focus on a flask and pour their spiritual strength into it. However, the flask explodes in Dins's hands, surprising him and causing injuries. Tam takes Dins to his office, treats his wounds, and expresses pleasure at seeing Dins's name in the audition class magazine. Tam suggests that Dins would be better off with a higher Gamston quota, but Dins remains loyal to Hannah. Despite this, Tam selflessly provides Dins with information about unique methods of an exceptional type, ensuring everything is in order. The class returns to the classroom, and heated discussions break out about the cause of the flask explosion and what the teacher, Tam, is doing with the careless student, Dins. Dins enters the classroom and goes back to his seat, sighing sadly as he had initially wanted to live an inconspicuous life but finds himself in another situation. Tam announces that the practical part of the lesson will now begin and calls his assistant, a first-year student named Franz, to join him. Franz greets the class and mentions that he has already opened 3 chains of genetic abilities, holding an E rank in the Transcendental Hype Speed class. The students are impressed by his achievements at such a young age. To illustrate the main disadvantage of the hidden type, Seuss asks if anyone wants to spar with Franz. Surprisingly, Franz requests to spar with Dins. The teacher is curious about the reason for this particular choice, and Franz admits that he wants to have a practical lesson with Dins, considering him a strong student from the audition faculty. Dins feels pressured from all sides, as refusing to spar would make him appear cowardly. However, another student named Kel volunteers to practice with Franz as well. Kel introduces himself as the owner of 2 chains of genetic abilities of an exceptional type. Franz agrees to face Kel first, with Tam's approval. The students find themselves in an impromptu ring, and the sparring begins. Kel warns that he has powerful fire abilities and advises his opponent to be cautious. However, to everyone's surprise, Franz quickly knocks Kel down, causing his fireball to fly out of the ring. Tam extinguishes the fire and maintains order. Franz comments that in a real fight, Kel would already be defeated. Despite the loss, Kel wants to try again. They return to their corners, and Franz gives Kel 1 second to attack in the second round. Kel tries to keep his distance and waits for an opportunity to strike, but Franz proves to be faster once again, winning the round. Tam thanks Frank for participating and highlights that the battle demonstrated the main weakness of the hidden type. He invites other students to try their hand at sparring, but Franz remembers that he hasn't sparred with Dins yet. Dins decides to accept the challenge, thinking that the fight was inevitable and that he will teach Franz a lesson in front of everyone, showing them not to mess with him. While ascending the stairs, Frank decides to caution Dins about maintaining distance and reveals that his left leg is weaker than his right. As warms up in the ring, he decides to record their fight on camera. Dins, noticing this, is happy that he can observe the intricacies of their battle. The fighters take their positions as the next round begins. Franz takes the initiative and launches an attack, leaving Dins to realize that Frank was not exaggerating about Franz's speed. Franz moves with exceptional quickness, but suddenly, right before he strikes Dins, he seems to vanish into thin air. A pyramid-shaped object hovers momentarily before crashing down on Franz's head, disorienting him. As the onlookers wonder what it was, possibly a spiritual manifestation, the perceptive Saris realizes that despite Dins's rough execution, he is becoming a true genius in his own right. Franz quickly recovers and charges towards Dins, grabbing his hand and delivering a kick to his face. With swift agility, Franz returns to his starting position, preparing for another attack. Despite Dins's telepathic abilities allowing him to anticipate Franz's moves, his physical reactions fall short. Dins acknowledges that he will need to dedicate all his free time to training if he wants to keep up with Franz's diverse techniques. Undeterred, Dins tries his spiritual embodiment technique again, but Franz, having learned from his previous encounter, evades the attack. Unexpectedly, the blow comes from behind, catching Dins off guard and leaving his face battered. Franz leaps into the air, ready to deliver a powerful punch, but Dins, driven by his resolve, blocks with determination. Continues to unleash powerful kicks, finally breaking through defense. Dins is sent flying to the side, crashing into the arena dome. However, Franz doesn't relent and hovers over Dins, dealing the decisive blow. Quickly intervenes, stopping the fight, as he believes Franz has gone too far. Dissatisfied murmurs arise from the audience, disapproving of the cruelty displayed by Franz. Franz asserts that in their genetically modified world, fights take precedence over training, as they will face numerous dangers. Upon awakening, Dins shares the sentiment and agrees to a rematch. However, he seeks approval from the teacher to use his special ability in combat. Not opposed to the fight, grants permission. Dins, now feeling a sense of superiority, requests some metal balls from the audience since he forgot his own at home. Some speculate that Dins will employ a bomb launcher, surprising his classmates. Kyla, sitting with her classmate Lily, lends her necklace to Dins, who expresses gratitude. Kyla rushes to the arena, handing Dins 3 pearls, assuring him they will be sufficient. Dins warns Franz to be more cautious this time, as he has already spared him twice but intends to fight to his fullest. Behind his confident facade, Dins harbors fear that Franz's speed may prove too much to handle. Franz assumes his position, urging Dins to be attentive, and charges towards him, vowing to beat him until he surrenders. A spiritual embodiment hurtles towards Franz, aiming to inflict damage, but he manages to shatter it with a powerful blow, asserting that it won't work this time. Undeterred, Dins creates multiple spiritual cones, but Franz effortlessly destroys each one. Franz wonders how much longer Dins can keep up this strategy, knowing that eventually, one of these cones will connect. Realizing the need to break free from this cycle, Franz propels himself into the air, gaining a more advantageous position. With confidence, he declares that Dins won't deceive him. With a grin on his face, the young man retrieves his 3 treasured balls and prepares to load them. It is evident that Franz's speed is formidable, but without support, he cannot be as nimble. The enemy realizes this with horror as he witnesses his opponent intentionally guiding the ball along a trajectory. Meanwhile, Dins has gathered enough energy and concentrates the power in his hand. He releases all 3 balls simultaneously, and unfortunately for Franz, one of them strikes him directly in the groin with tremendous force, leaving him knocked out and in pain. The classmates react by applauding and expressing their admiration for Dins's impressive move. However, the teaching assistant, not finding it amusing, immediately contacts the ambulance for urgent medical attention, as the student's injury appears to be serious and might require surgery. The doctors arrive swiftly, assess the situation, and transport the victim on a stretcher. A preliminary diagnosis indicates severe damage to the ligament, meniscus, and synovial membrane, but further details will be known after the operation. The medical staff inquires about the incident, but the teacher, covering his face with his hand, prioritizes the student's treatment and promises to provide a report later. The doctors concur and take the victim away. Afterward, Frank approaches Dins, who is sitting at his desk, to inquire if he regrets defeating Franz in such a manner. However, The young man expresses no regrets, explaining that if he had given in, he would be the one in need of medical attention. The teaching assistant addresses the audience, acknowledging the unexpected events that unfolded during the lesson but considering it a valuable learning experience. He reassures the freshmen that any serious injuries they may encounter will be treated by the university's professional medical care, so they need not worry. The class is dismissed, and the teacher announces that he will assign homework. Meanwhile, the students are captivated by the videos on their tablets, showcasing the defeat of an upstart from another institute during a combat exercise. Finally, Dins returns to his room, grateful for a moment of respite. Throughout the day, people have already started mocking him on the internet due to the incident with Albert's flask. The young man contemplates the events of the day when suddenly, a notification arrives from his roommate, Payne. It is a list of house rules, specifying cleaning schedules, prohibited items for washing, guest policies, and non-negotiable restrictions. While reading the seemingly tedious list, an unfamiliar young man enters the room and inquires if he is really Dins. This individual turns out to be Payne, his third-year roommate, and a university idol. Payne promptly warns Dins that if he disagrees with the rules, they can approach the manager to request a room change. However, Dins agrees to abide by the prescribed conditions. Observing Dins's appearance, Payne notices his injuries and asks about them. Although hesitant, Dins reveals that he was injured during combat practice earlier. Payne, in a somewhat blunt manner, expresses concern that Dins's endurance might not withstand the 3-month protection period. Recalling the mention of the 3-month period by Teacher Cuss, Dins asks for more information. Payne, grinning and crossing his arms, explains that every genetic evolution university encourages students to compete and improve. Kier University is no exception, and the top-ranking students receive additional training resources. Each year, a list of the top 100 students is published, with the Dragon taking the first place and the Tigers representing the top 10. Each position on the list comes with its own rewards, including energy capsules worth a significant amount. Payne mentions the 3-month protection period, which means that freshmen are shielded from intense competition for that duration. However, after the 3 months, the competition becomes fully open. He warns Dins that there are exceptionally gifted individuals who strive to challenge the university's rules, often resulting in serious injuries, disabilities, expulsion, and even death. As he heads toward the exit, Payne bids farewell, emphasizing that if Dins wants to survive, he must train rigorously. Left alone, the hero contemplates everything he has heard. He had assumed that getting along with the elder would be challenging, but he never expected Payne to be both sharp-tongued and soft-hearted. Payne's words about the target worry Dins, making him wonder how things could have turned out differently. At the very least, Albert and Franz hold a grudge against him, but he takes solace in the fact that the incident was captured on film, allowing him to learn about their strengths. These thoughts lead him to consider Master Sarah's training methods, hoping they include skills like affinity with metal. Finally, evening arrives, and Dins takes a shower after an eventful day. As he leaves the bathroom, he feels rejuvenated, as if reborn. Suddenly, the clock on his bed starts ringing, indicating Nico's call. Angrily, Nico berates him, mentioning the posts on the internet featuring the injured Franz. Nico wants to know what Dins has done once again. Nico suggests that Dins should contact the person who posted the videos and provides a phone number. Curious, Dins decides to go online and see what people are saying about him. To his shock, the whole story has been distorted, portraying him as a threat and a maimer. He is appalled by the details that were conveniently left out to make him look bad. Dins decides to confront the senior student responsible for the posts. He contacts a student named Robert, introducing himself and expressing his dissatisfaction. Dins wants the students to see the whole truth as it actually happened. Robert responds by asking if Dins wants to settle everything and demands a price of $5 million. After a brief pause, Robert bursts into laughter, admitting it was just a joke and that he wouldn't dare rob a poor student. He sees no reason to change the posts. Frustrated, Dins tries to shame Robert, pointing out that he is a public figure spreading false rumors. Robert dismisses V's claims, stating he is too busy and ends the call, laughing at the naivety of young people. Displeased with the conversation, Dins realizes his enemy is cunning and difficult to expose. He considers filing a complaint, but he knows that Robert could continue with other conspiracies. He decides that some measures need to be taken and begins preparing himself. He acknowledges that if his opponent refuses to be kind, he shouldn't blame himself for being rude. Even at such a late hour, he decides to go to the discipline department. Upon entering the foyer, he is greeted by the secretary, and just as he is about to express his desire to file a complaint, Finn, the head of the department, enters and inquires about the situation. Versus reports the blackmail and extortion happening on the university's website. Finn acknowledges the seriousness of the violations and promises to address the matter after his ongoing meeting. He instructs the secretary to block Robert's account and mentions that further punishment will be decided upon after the meeting. Meanwhile, an extraordinary meeting of the Kier University of Genetic Evolution is already underway. The dean asks if everything is in order, and it is reported that except for Finn and a few committees on assignments, everyone is present. The reason for the meeting is the involvement of two students, Dins and Franz, in the recent events. The dean acknowledges that everyone is aware of the situation and invites the attendees to express their opinions. The deputy dean of Stormhold is the first to speak, believing that Dins's actions towards Franz were excessively harsh and that he should face severe punishment. On the contrary, Helia Schaefer argues that it was a regular combat training session, and Franz provoked Dins while brutally attacking him. She believes Dins's response was justified, considering he showed restraint twice. Vice Director Pete emphasizes that the issue lies not in the counterattack but in the fact that Dins crippled Franz. Deputy Mark from the Department of Information believes that while the young man should not be punished too harshly, he should still face some form of punishment. Alfredo believes that Dins had ill intentions and blames him for taking the fight tape, which caused the problem. The Office of Academic Affairs believes that Dins should bear the main responsibility for the incident. Sean, after hearing the opinions of the deputies and managers, wants to know teachers' thoughts on the matter. Cited and admits that he also bears responsibility for the incident because he failed to supervise the fight properly. Sean becomes angry and shouts at the professor, believing that he should have reprimanded V and posted the full video of the battle online immediately. Sean thinks that Saris wanted to glorify his institute's student, but he should have prioritized supporting the students and avoiding personal conflicts. The director wants to know the opinions of his colleagues on what to do with Severus. Opinions are divided, with some believing that the teacher is to blame but Dins should not go unpunished. Pete suggests giving them a warning for the future. Sean questions why the university teaches students if they don't want to resist deliberate human humiliation from their rivals. He emphasizes the importance of maintaining a spirit of resistance in the face of powerful enemies. The meeting concludes with the decision for Severus to take on the main responsibility, and other teachers should limit themselves to educational conversations. Everyone agrees with this decision. At the end of the meeting, Finn approaches Sean and presents a completed full report on the incident. Sean throws the tablet to Mark, asking him to look at it himself as he did not expect such a thing to happen at their university. Sean reveals that a student named Robert used his popularity to blackmail and extort money, and there are 3 confirmed cases. The video itself is in the Mark Information Department. The head of the university offers Mark to take the lead instead of the director if he can't handle his duties properly. Meanwhile, Robert taunts Dins, thinking that if his number is blocked, he won't be able to do anything. Just as he decides to open the door, he is met by 2 individuals who introduce themselves as employees from a special department of the Intelligence Department. They have orders to arrest Robert for extortion and blackmail and ask him to come with them. In one of the dorm rooms, a scream is heard as the students realize that all the videos they filmed have been deleted, and they may face prosecution for blackmail and extortion. Professor Tam is removed from his position as vice dean, and the university acknowledges the need to encourage healthy rivalry among students to create strong heroes. On that same morning, Dins continues his meditation and rigorous training. He falls tiredly onto his bed, having finally unlocked the 36th base point of the first level. It usually takes at least 6 months, but he accomplished it in just 4 weeks. Dins feels that while his spiritual power hasn't skyrocketed, its intensity has significantly increased. He believes that in the next battle, his spiritual cone will not break as easily when facing Franz or anyone else. Eager to test his skills, he decides to assess his telepathic abilities and realizes that his range extends beyond his room, reaching his older neighbor's room. However, to his surprise, Payne's gaze turns towards him, and V hears him calling him a bastard. Startled, Dins feels as if he is abruptly pulled out of his visions. He tries to apologize, explaining that he was merely curious, but Payne ignores him and warns him to be careful. Payne notes that if Dins exceeds the 4-meter mark within a month, it wouldn't be bad, but he must be cautious as any negligence will have consequences. Awkwardly, Dins promises to be extremely careful from now on and hesitantly asks about Pain's genetic abilities. Pain reveals that he not only possesses genetic abilities but also practices an ancient martial art called Lion's Roar, tailored to his gene points. Dins is taken aback to hear about Pain's genetic abilities in martial art for the first time. He feels surprised and slightly embarrassed. Intrigued, Dins asks Pain if he can borrow a book on the martial art that he saw Pain practicing. Dins expresses his interest in learning a bit about it himself. Pain agrees to lend him the book, but on the condition that he retrieves it himself and brings it to Dins's room. Pain emphasizes that Dins should never enter his room or spy on him under any circumstances. Dins willingly agrees to the conditions, and the books end up in his possession. He spends his days engrossed in reading and studying the martial art, even taking the opportunity to read during breaks or on busy streets. The knowledge he gains from the books proves to be valuable. For instance, he learns that profound practices can be simplified to regular meditation. This reminds Dins of his father teaching him meditation, and he feels a sense of nostalgia. Dins decides that once he finishes reading the book, he will ask Pain about his meditation experiences. However, before he can do so, a classmate approaches him and invites him to grab a snack together, offering to treat him. Dins feels a bit embarrassed but accepts the invitation. As their conversation is overheard by other classmates, they also decide to join, eager to have lunch with the famous prefect, Dins. Delighted by the positive reaction from his peers, Dins agrees for everyone to go together. Out of nowhere, a towering man began searching for him, inquiring with everyone present if Dins could be found in the room. Two individuals with an air of arrogance stood beside him, while a girl with white hair stood slightly behind them. Dins responded, confirming that he was the one being sought. The man introduced himself as Dave, a member of the Speed Department Class 3 at Extreme Academy. Dins asked how he could assist him. Dave, with his arms crossed, casually stated that he simply wanted to challenge Dins to a match, without any specific demands. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more content. Feel free to leave a comment down below sharing your thoughts or suggestions. If you want to stay updated on all our latest uploads, click the notification bell icon. And hey, why not check out some of our other videos popping up on the screen right now? If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really means a lot. Peace.